Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council Alexei Danilov is convinced that processes have already begun in Russia that will lead to the disintegration of the aggressor country. Direct speech of the Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council: processes began there that no longer suit the leadership of the Russian Federation. They did not start immediately, not in March, not in April, but 2 months after they began to gain momentum. In research, there are territories that are already ready to be liberated from the colonial state. We have the first, let's say, a dozen of these regions. We understand who will be, relatively speaking, at the forefront of all processes. Details. According to Danilov, this is evidenced by the data of special studies that are directly carried out by the special services of the Russian Federation on their territory. They show that there are territories that do not support the regime of Russian President Vladimir Putin, and their percentage is much higher than, relatively speaking, 2 months ago. Danilov added that the Russians themselves know about these territories, which are ready to be liberated from the Russian Federation. Among them, he named Tatarstan in the first place, and Ichkeria in the second, which will definitely be free. Danilov is convinced that when the process of withdrawing from the Russian Federation begins, it will be impossible to stop it, because it will gain momentum and end with the collapse of the Federation. The Secretary of the National Security and Defense Council also added that Ukraine almost does not take part in this. Putin is ruining the Russian Federation with his own actions. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said that the West is pursuing a policy based on provocations towards Russia. I can clearly say that I do not find the attitude of the West towards Russia correct. Because there is a West that pursues a policy based on provocations, Erdogan said. The Turkish president also said that the West is sending weapons junk to Ukraine, writes Hurriyet. He added that the war would not end anytime soon. I tell those who underestimate Russia that you are doing wrong. Russia cannot be underestimated. The Turkish president also confirmed Ankara's balanced policy towards Russia and Ukraine, aimed at resolving the crisis. He stated that neither Russia nor Ukraine are winners in this war, but there are many losers. Russia has turned off natural gas, prices have risen in Europe. Everyone is thinking about it. Why didn't they think about it before? The president said. Lithuania, Latvia and Estonia have agreed to significantly restrict the entry of Russians with valid Schengen visas. The Baltic countries have reached an agreement on a significant restriction, with some exceptions, of the border crossing by citizens of the Russian Federation who have EU Schengen visas, the Latvian diplomat said on his Twitter. According to him, the decisions will be made by national governments in accordance with national procedures and will come into force at the same time. Recall that following the discussion on August 31, EU foreign ministers decided to completely stop the visa facilitation agreement with the Russian Federation and instructed the European Commission to think about what to do with millions of valid Russian visas. The ministers also agreed that neighboring countries of the Russian Federation can take individual steps to restrict the entry of Russians. The Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine on September 6 appealed to the European Union with a request to cancel the issuance and already received tourist visas for citizens of the Russian Federation. The Ukrainian military received Harpoon anti-ship missiles from partners. They were converted to a car platform. This was stated by U.S. Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition Bill LaPlante. He confirmed that sea-based Harpoon missiles were handed over to Ukraine, but before that they were modernized and converted to cars. The story is that one country, which I will not name, had Harpoons installed on a ship. It was a sea-based Harpoon. So we worked with this country and the contractor, removed them from the ship, placed them on trucks with platforms, LaPlante said. He explained that Harpoon modules were installed on one car, and a power source was installed on the other. According to the deputy head of the Pentagon, the Ukrainian military was trained to use these weapons back in May. The Ukrainian Armed Forces want to return most of the Russian-occupied Kherson region by the end of 2022. It is reported by CNN. What we saw in the Kherson region is the continuation of the offensive operations of the Ukrainians. They continue to move forward. We know that they recaptured some villages, Pentagon spokesman General Pat Ryder said. According to Ukrainian officials, the goal of the armed forces of Ukraine is to liberate at least all the territory north or west of the Dnieper, including not only the city of Kherson, but also Novaya Kakhovka, where an important hydroelectric power station is located, as well as a canal through which water flows to Crimea water. In addition, Ukrainian defenders have increased pressure in the east, which prevents the Russian Federation from transferring its forces to the south. U.S. officials stress that the Ukrainian goal of recapturing Kherson by the end of 2022 is ambitious and remains feasible if the Ukrainian armed forces continue to make progress in their current operations. The U.S. believes that the current Ukrainian push will last until the spring, and some attacks are now aimed at preparing the battlefield for a planned offensive over the next few months. Russian President Vladimir Putin said that since the beginning of the war in Ukraine, the Russian Federation has not lost anything. Putin's direct speech: "I am sure that the Russian Federation has not lost anything since February 24, but the main gain is the strengthening of sovereignty. Russia is a sovereign state. We will always defend our national interests by pursuing an independent policy." Details: the president of the aggressor country also added that Russia, to the end, will fulfill its duty to protect Donbass, strengthen externally and internally. In addition, Putin is sure that it is impossible to isolate Russia, because the country, using its natural competitive advantages, will continue to increase its transport potential, expand the network of roads and railways, build new approaches to sea terminals and increase their capacity. He convinces that Russia is fully capable of providing itself with natural resources. According to Putin, the Far Eastern Federal District plays a significant role in this, since it is the most important supplier both to the domestic market and to foreign partners of oil, natural gas, coal, metals, timber and aquatic biological resources. At the same time, the Russian president believes that the West, in the name of the notorious unity, throws everything into the furnace. Putin's direct speech: the achieved level of industrial development in Europe, the quality of life of people, socio-economic stability, all this is thrown into the furnace of the sanctions furnace, spent on orders from Washington in the name of the notorious Euro-Atlantic unity, and in fact is sacrificed for the sake of preserving the dictatorship of the United States in world affairs. Details: according to the president of the aggressor country, in the spring many foreign corporations announced their withdrawal from Russia, and today production and jobs in Europe itself are being closed one after another.